So COVID-19, the HR side. This is just your basic information. It's been reiterated time and time again, obviously, and most of the clients are doing this work from home if possible, video conference when possible. Do not attend work at all if showing any signs of illness or have returned from any travel. Even that's pretty limited right now, but self-isolate. And there is a new link on the alberta.ca website. It's actually self-assessment. Anybody now is eligible for testing for COVID. So I actually looked at that yesterday, went on, and you just fill in your information that you've been having symptoms and they get back to you where to go get tested. So it's opened up for anybody. Obviously 811 is still there for any health related concerns. I don't know that the wait now is as long as it used to be. Social distance, obviously, at all times, at work and at all public places. I have attended work sites to do various presentations, working with some unfortunate layoffs, and it is possible. People are staggering people at work. People are, if they're in a open area, they're making sure that every second desk is empty, that sort of thing. And the Lysol wipes are everywhere. Practice good hygiene and obviously wipe surfaces with disinfectant. So one of the newer full-on job protective leaves, there was one put in place by the Alberta government when this first started, specifically around self-isolation or illness regarding COVID. They've expanded that job protective leave for any reason to do with COVID, or if you have to stay at home to care for children. So this is an unpaid leave. You would be eligible for payment through the CERB or well, EI basically now is the CERB, and I'll talk about that later. So to be eligible, employees don't have to have any sort of medical note or proof of any kind, because there really is not a lot of stipulations around this leave. And unlike normal job protective leaves where you would have had to work for an employer for 90 days, that has also been removed for this process. This is not going to be an ongoing leave. This is a temporary change to the employment standards. And it does not apply to self-employed individuals or contractors. Employment insurance sickness benefits, EI and sickness benefits have always been there. This is nothing new. What is new is there's usually a 1-week waiting period for employment sickness benefits. That has been waived temporarily once again to deal with the onslaught of illness-related COVID absences. I will once again talk about this and how it relates to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, because EI, as we know it right now, is full. Basically, it's about the best way I can say. They can't really take any more applicants, so it's filtering through the CERB system. The employment insurance benefit allows up to 15 weeks of assistance under the program for medical reasons due to self-quarantine or self-isolation, or obviously any other illness not related to COVID. So there are other ways to manage somebody taking time off. You still have vacation pay or bank time that employers and employees can use if they don't want to go through the government benefits that are being offered. We have had some clients that have had employees use vacation time or bank time that's available to them, really because it's at full pay. And provincial employment standards require that employers have to allow their employees to take any time within 6 months, or it has to be paid out as overtime, which is time and a half. And I think a lot of people don't realize this, but employers actually, under the Alberta Employment that relationship with the employee. It's used when you have full intention of bringing employees back. At least that's when it should be used. It used to be a standard 60-day leave with an option to extend it to 120 days, but now it is automatically up to 120 days. So what happens under that leave now is on the 121st day, which under old rules would have been day 60, you have to make the decision to either bring the workers back or to permanently terminate their employment. And a temporary layoff, their notices are quite different than a regular layoff or termination letter. The letter is very specific that it has to include section 62, 63, and 64 of the code, and has to be very specific that is a temporary layoff. Notice is still required under a temporary layoff, but only a maximum of 2 weeks notice, and that's for anybody that's been with the employer for 2 years plus. Whereas under a regular termination, I'll get into that, notices can be much higher than that. Temporary layoff versus a permanent termination of employment. They should be used, like I said, if you actually plan on bringing employees back. That's why a lot of employers are using that under this circumstance, because they are looking at, let's say, a 6-8 week shutdown, potentially longer. So it really does also benefit employers that have longer term employees, because it reduces the notice entitlement to a 2-week maximum notice, whereas under normal termination circumstances, the notice can be a lot longer. Plus, the notice, there are some common law practices that have to be looked at under a permanent termination as well. Once it is decided at the end of a temporary layoff, if you're not going to bring employees back, the rest of the notice has to be paid at that time, plus, once again, any common law practices that may apply. And I will get into that, but if anybody has questions around what that means, please feel free to ask or send me an email. And it's just a good message to your employees, because it does show you have every intention of bringing them back. So a termination of employment, full notice must be paid at time of termination, along with any money owing. Vacation money, bank time, anything that might be owing to the employee must be paid at the time of termination. And once again, common law practice is in effect. And what I mean by that is, if you have somebody that typically is over age 50, in a senior position, has long tenure, you would probably, under common law, need to offer them more than employment standards. So where I have some clients and using the permanent termination of employment under this circumstance, employers have looked and thought it gives them an opportunity to then sort of reorganize, call back people who are needed, who are exceptional workers, allows maybe to, if they're going to rehire back at some point, adjust compensation. So it gives the flexibility of an organization to take a look at their needs going forward. So I don't want to say it's an excuse, but it is if you have some people that you weren't sure that you wanted to maintain, this is an opportunity then to take a look at, okay, under these circumstances, we don't have work anyways. What can we do in the meantime to look at our organization? I put in the bottom right the actual length of employment and the notice required. So it goes up to 8 weeks notice if you have somebody that's been there 10 years or longer. That's why a temporary layoff is a lot easier on some employees or employers, because of pure cash flow. There's another program. This also is not a new program, and I don't know a lot of people that are using this. It's the Supplemental Unemployment Benefit Program. So it can be used anytime an employer wants to top up what an employee is getting on employment insurance. A lot of employers use this during maternity leave, for example, and maternity leave is the only leave that this program does not have to be pre-approved. So basically, this program is used during temporary work stoppage, where you've got somebody on EI, and the key to this program is you have to have it registered before the effective date. So if you want to use this program next week, you need to get it registered this week. And basically you have to identify a group of employees covered in duration. So as I said, maternity leave is a classified a group of covered employees. If you wanted to put this in place for people that are off due to temporary work shortage, that would be your group of employees. And they must receive employment insurance to receive the benefits. You can top up to a maximum of 95% of normal earnings, and obviously it has to be 100% employer paid, and on a specific, basically in line with your payroll, weekly or biweekly or semi-monthly, whatever works with your payroll. And I've included the link there. The program, like I said, is quite a lengthy application process, so I've included the link there for that program. Another way that people are managing reduced workload is reducing compensation. Obviously, this is a risk. A risk of being deemed constructive dismissal is the biggest risk there. We have a legal firm that we use for our questions from a legal side. And their rule of thumb is generally you can get away with reducing wages of up to 15% without triggering constructive dismissal. That's generally. At that point, employees will accept the fact that they'd rather have a 15% reduction than no employment at all. So I know clients all over the place that are reducing wages, and a lot of them aren't. You still should give the same notice period that you would under a termination, because you're actually changing a contract. Unfortunately, in this time, people are just doing what they can do to make payroll. Obviously, anything that's talked about here, if you have a union, you have to go by the union agreement. This program is another program that's undergone, I think, 2 to 3 reiterations since the federal government came out with the program initially at the beginning of the pandemic. So the wage subsidy program is a layoff prevention program. The initial one that came out was a wage subsidy of 10%. That program is still available to organizations. There was only a maximum of $1,375 per employee that they could use, up to a maximum of $25,000 total per employer. And how you did that program is you took 10% of your payroll, and when you went and remitted your taxes, you just simply deducted that 10% from what you remitted to CRA. So that 10% stayed in the organization's bank account, basically, for ease. Program is really not worth a lot of money. It's not. So it didn't really help companies bringing back people at all. So the government then went to a wage subsidy of 75% of remuneration for up to 3 months. This one is far more generous. It still does have, it works on a maximum earnings of $58,700 per year. So the maximum you can subsidize is up to that amount. Anything over and above that would be on the employer's, out of the employer's pocket, over and above that 25%. So that equates to about $847 a week, and there was no cap per employer. This program is backdated to March 15th, and it goes for a 12-week period. The eligibility actually is quite complicated. I was going to put it in the slide, but they have numerous scenarios, and also with not-for-profit organizations, this is a program that you would need to discuss with your accounting firm or whoever does your accounting, because it has to do with where you get your funding from, how and if you generate any revenue, because you have to show a decrease in revenue funding either from the previous month or from the previous month a year back. So it's quite complicated to make sure that you qualify and how you calculate that. So there's the website for that one. Workshare this is the program there was the question on earlier. So the Workshare program, once again, is not a new program. It's been around for a long time. And it's really basically what you're doing. It's the reverse almost to the Supplementary Unemployment Benefit Program, where you topped up EI. This one, EI tops up you. So whatever you can pay your employees, the employment insurance tops up EI. You have to show a decline in business activity of 10%, directly or indirectly related to COVID, because this program is not new. the shortage of work cannot be permanent, obviously. It has to be something beyond our control and not cyclical. So seasonal businesses couldn't use this program. Your business has to be or organization for 2 years. It's available to private, publicly held, or not-for-profit organizations. And you have to have at least 2 employees in the work-share program, hence work-share. You have at least 2 people to share the work. And in the application process, once again, which is quite lengthy, you have to show a recovery plan. The employee's eligibility, they have to be year-round permanent staff. They can be part-time, but they have to be considered basically core staff. They have to be eligible to receive EI benefits, and they all have to agree to reduce their normal hours by the same percentage and share available work. So they have to be virtually doing the same type of work. You couldn't have somebody that does, let's say, outreach work, job share with someone who does admin work, because that work cannot be shared equally. All work share members, like I said, have to agree to reduce their hours by the same percent and share their work, and they all have to sign on the application to this effect. Everybody who's involved has to sign the application. If work increases, the increase must be shared equally. Consequently, if it decreases, it's got to be decreased equally. You have to reduce the hours by 10% to a maximum of 60%, which equates to 3 days. And it can vary week to week. Every week you have to send a report in. Like I said, it has to be the same job description. Basically, it has to be the same type of work. And the theory behind this program is the reduction in work hours should theoretically correspond with how many people you would have to lay off. So this is once again more of a layoff prevention program. 26 weeks, and you normally can extend that to an additional 12 weeks, but under the COVID, you can extend it to actually 76 weeks. And like I said, you must have a signed agreement. I've included the link there to the application. And once again, like I said, it's a bit more of an administrative process, but if you have the work, it's a great program. The other one that's out there, WCB Premium Relief, I'm not sure how many of the organizations are mandatory for WCB. This is also eligible for anybody who has voluntary industries that take out WCB coverage. So this program is for anybody that has premiums 10 million or less, and it's basically the fact that they will defer your premiums to 2021. And 50% of this year's premiums will be waived when they're finally invoiced in 2021. And if you've already paid, they're supposed to refund your premiums. Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So this is a benefit that's been talked about a lot and is also changed. It just changed 2 days ago to open it up so that there will be more people that the benefit will be available to. So this benefit pays $2,000 per month for up to 4 months for workers, and this includes self-employed contract workers. So this is where it's really trying to assist those that are not usually eligible for employment insurance. So it is available to workers who lose income due to COVID. So this is not something that people are supposed to apply for if they've been out of work for 6 months. And it's not really COVID that's caused that, but I don't know how they're going to be able to police that really. So it's loss of work. It doesn't mean that you've been laid off. It's that you have loss of work. So you can still be employed with an organization, although not working due to COVID. Anybody who's earning $1,000 or less per month, and this is seasonal workers included, can apply for this benefit. It also includes anybody that has actually run out of employment insurance, and you need to reconfirm your eligibility every 4 weeks through the CRA login portal. So when you go into that portal, it asks you, I think it's literally 4 questions, and you basically attest to the fact that your answers are correct, and you're basically telling the truth, and your payments, if you're signed up through CRA for direct deposit, the payment's literally there in 1 to 2 days. Yeah, it's a great program the way it works. So the eligibility is you have to be at least age 15. Like I said, you have to have stopped working or lost lost work due to COVID, and you don't have to be laid off. And what the application actually asks you is if you expect to be without work for the next 14 consecutive days in a 4-week period. So the application is very easy, but you do need to have an account with CRA. That's the method that the benefits are being paid through. What they've done now with this is what I said, it's actually taken over for employment insurance, because I think the employment insurance system was way beyond capacity. So anybody who was eligible for EI after March 15th, the benefit is being flowed through the CERB system. So you would receive a flat $500 a week. This money is taxable, but it's not taxable at source. So when anybody files their tax returns for 2020, it will form part of that tax return. So you will owe tax on that money eventually if you earned above the personal exemption. This benefit does not affect EI entitlement. Once you're through this benefit, you can still apply for EI. So those who are currently in receipt of employment insurance, either regular or sickness, they will continue to receive EI and should not apply for the CERB. If your employment insurance application is in process, do not apply for the CERB, but what will happen, it will automatically be kicked into that system. If your EI benefits cease before October 3rd, you can apply for the CERB. And after your CERB benefit ceases, if you're on that and you're still unemployed and you're eligible for regular EI benefits, you can access that at that time. This is just to end on a note of a bit of positivity. The Alberta government has a system called Text for Hope. I've signed up for it. You text COVID-19 HOPE is what you put in the text box, and the number's 393939. And every morning you get a text with positive messages or a link to, there's some on meditation. It's just kind of a nice way to start your morning other than turning on the news and seeing how many COVID cases and deaths there are. So that's just a little positivity you can spread around your organization as well.